I had a thought recently while rewatching one of my favorite campy monster movies, the 1996 classic Tremors. When our protagonists get stranded in the valley with graboids hunting the citizens of perfection, why didn't they use a phone to call for help? Sure, they wrote out the payphone in the local shop, but it got me wondering, how much would this movie change if not only our leads could call for help, but also do things like check their friends' locations on GPS and text them warnings of incoming graboids? Or think for a second about the opening scene of the 1996 slasher film, Scream. Imagine how much that scene would change if Drew Barrymore had the freedom to run to the woods while on the phone with 911. This is actually a fun mental exercise you can try whenever you're watching a movie you've seen before that is set in the mid-90s or earlier. How would the introduction of a cell phone completely change the plot of this film? It has become a bit of a fascination in recent years, not only thinking of how movies would be changed by phones, but trying to spot movies that exist in the modern day that go out of their way to write out cell phones in their plot so they don't disrupt the flow of the story that the filmmakers are trying to tell. And even the rare film that goes to the opposite end of the spectrum, by completely focusing the movie around a phone or computer screen. Come along with us as we take a strange journey down the rabbit hole of phones in film. It may be a bit of an obvious statement, but the kinds of films you see that would be most impacted by the addition of a cell phone are ones that are older than the invention of portable phone technology. This is because the idea of cell phones was once classified as science fiction, something that we could dream about, but was not actually considered possible at the time. It's a bit hard to imagine now, but it's like modern filmmakers adding elements into their movies, like a fully personalized, automated AI robot home assistant. Sure, there are attempts to create this kind of device today, but nothing at the ability that we see in the movies. It's the same with movies portraying phones before their introduction into mainstream society. But here's where something interesting can happen. I want you to try a new angle with our little mental exercise. Think of how you could add a smartphone into the story of a film, and then try to mentally rewrite the film while still keeping the movie true to the message that it was trying to convey. By running these little mental games on enough movies, you may find that you can sometimes actually improve an older film by adding in elements like a smartphone. Let's try it with one of our favorites here at Cursory Analysis, The Thing. It's an incredible 1982 horror remake of a 1951 film about an alien that crash lands on Earth and has the ability to replicate organic creatures, including humans. The 1982 film takes place on a remote Antarctic research base and is an unnerving mystery of who is human and who is a host to the alien life form. Think about current phone technology being added to the situation. Sure, being on a remote Antarctic base will likely still leave the people there disconnected from the rest of the world via cell phone. But today's technology would allow for Wi-Fi, satellite communication, and video calls. Now think about how unnerved our protagonist would become if, in the midst of learning this alien life form was among the crew, the Wi-Fi was to go out, cutting off all their communication with the rest of the world. That's a new level of horror only possible by having this access in the first place, and then having it stripped away. Now think about having the technological access to their phone's biometric unlocking features. This is a modern tool that could be added as an early test to see if someone has been replicated. Even if smartphone biometric scanning isn't an accurate test in reality, it could still be used as a method to establish the alien's accuracy of replication for the protagonists as well as the audience. This even sets up a perfect opportunity for a shocking attack where there is a false sense of security after using the biometric data test. This could then let you still keep the blood test, one of the best scenes in the movie, in the film as a more accurate test to be tried later on. While The Thing is quite possibly one of the best films ever made, The time period aesthetic and technological capabilities of the 1980s aren't what made it successful. The thing could feasibly be remade today with modern technology available to the crew and still be amazing by sticking to the core tenets of what made the film so great. Convincing practical effects, fear of the unknown, and extreme isolation. Also MacReady's sombrero hat. Another film we took a look at through the lens of adding phones was Stanley Kubrick's The Shining, a notoriously mind-bending horror film from 1980 that invites you to go down the path of delusion and insanity alongside protagonist Jack Torrance throughout the plot of the movie. Adding cell phones could be another modern addition to the film to show Jack's descent into madness. Imagine Jack getting frustrated with Wendy and constantly stepping away to take a call from his employer and detaching from conversations to check and send texts. This could also serve as another aspect of control that Jack holds over Wendy and Danny, restricting her from seeing a screen and holding the power of communication with the outside world. The updated reveal in this could be Wendy finally getting to Jack's phone and slowly opening his call logs to see there is nothing, no calls received, and opening his text messages to see undelivered messages with random numbers stating one thing over and over. All work and no play makes Jack a dull boy. These are very rough rewrites, but it opens up a world of possibilities for what adding this kind of technological capability could do for these classic stories. While we just discussed how sometimes adding a phone can improve an older film's plot, more often than not when you perform this mental exercise, you quickly realize that cell phones, and especially smartphones, will undoubtedly destroy most movie plots. Smartphones are an interesting curveball that modern filmmakers have had to begin to account for in the last 30 years. This is because a phone changes the fundamental capabilities of our protagonists and antagonists in such a way that if you're writing a film around conflict, you now have to account for a level of access and connection that could ruin many movie plots if they were remade today. But this fact is not lost on filmmakers, and spawned a quirky trope in many modern movies: writing out the use of phones. This can sometimes be clever and very true to the story being told. Think about the 2004 comedy Without a Paddle. Our protagonists get lost on a canoeing expedition in the Oregon wilderness looking for D.B. Cooper's stolen money, and bumble their way through several life-threatening situations with the power of lifelong friendship. This movie actually addresses the advancement of technology with the introduction of a satellite phone early on before the group heads into the woods.
Listen, it's even got a personalized ring. You shouldn't be proud of that, Dad.
The write-out happens when the group has their first night in the woods and encounters a bear that ravages their campsite. The group hides in a tree and listens as their phone rings become muffled as the bear eats it. There are even a few callbacks to the phone throughout the movie to remind us of the phone's existence via its ringtone. The overall purpose of writing out this phone is to trap our group in the woods, without a means to call for help or try to track themselves with something like GPS. They are isolated and forced to depend on each other to get out alive. This is the writers finding a creative yet plausible reason to eliminate cell phones with the desired purpose: to force these friends to come to terms with their life choices and rediscover their childhood passions through an adventure with their friends. But not every instance of writing out phones' existence feels very motivated by the story. Take the 2004 movie Harold and Kumar Go to White Castle. Similarly to our previous example, this movie follows friends journeying together through an escalating barrage of mishaps. The key difference with how these movies deal with the capabilities of cell phones is Without a Paddle took time to establish the existence and a reason the phone suddenly became inaccessible, while Harold and Kumar...
I forgot my cell phone.
You want to run back and get it?
No, we've gone too far.
While you could dismiss this example as a campy comedy just being silly, it still doesn't really make sense for the universe we are presented with in the movie. We have Harold presented as the uptight and overly cautious type from the get-go. The type of person that would absolutely not accept "we've come too far" as a reason to not bring his phone along. This kind of irrational decision that isn't true to the character makes this moment feel a bit like a last-minute addition on the last day of shooting. The film could have easily found a way to take the same approach as Without a Paddle, by having their phones get taken or go missing in their first unplanned event. With either example, we have the same approach being taken, with the filmmakers seeing the capabilities of a cell phone as detrimental to the story they were trying to tell. But what if the writers took the direct opposite approach, and decided to make the capabilities of the phone central to how they choose to tell the story? Something interesting has started to happen in recent years that takes our little mental exercise and turns it up to 11. Rather than avoiding smartphone technology, the entire film takes place on or around a phone or computer screen. This genre has come to be known as screen life movies. This is a wildly unique concept that is still in its infancy as a mode of storytelling and has extremely varied levels of success. Many consider the pandemic as the tipping point for this kind of movie style, as it made interacting through screens a more commonplace event. In reality, this kind of filmmaking has been around since the early 2000s, with the Collingswood story, released in 2002, being one of the earliest examples. While it looks dated now, it shows how things like video chat and internet were not only revolutionary for practical day-to-day uses, but could also be adapted into a storytelling medium that mirrors how technology has changed the ways people communicate. As the style of filmmaking has improved over the years, we eventually got what is considered one of, if not the best screen life movie in the 2018 movie Searching. The film follows a father who desperately tries to solve the mystery of where his missing daughter is gone. Rather than exposition or flashbacks to set up the relationship of the father and daughter, we see the father reminisce by watching an old video on his hard drive and watch his reaction through the open FaceTime app. Moments like a character trying to think about the answer to a question are also drastically changed. From a traditional exchange with a knowledgeable person,
a liposuction clinic,
research through physical media in a library, or seeing an answer to a plot mystery out in the world, we have moments where the father simply Googles the question and hunts through articles for his answer. While it may seem like a rather simple solution, this film is still very complex and took several years of post-production to achieve a sense of realism with the user interface, meaning that the choice to make the screen life film should not be a choice of convenience, but about the best medium to tell your story. While I don't think this style of filmmaking is going to be the new standard that we see coming out every year, it is still a unique storytelling method that warrants paying attention to in years to come. It has also helped lead to a blending of the two extremes of having no smartphones and being all smartphones by having someone's screen UI visible to the audience. This is an elegant balance between accurately capturing modern life with phones used as a tool in everyday life, and the artifice of a film serving as an artistic representation of modern life, and far more creative than just showing a character's phone screen as a close-up for either too short or too long of a time. This allows the pacing of a story to stay on track. It also gives the characters on screen a chance to react as a person normally would in that scenario. This solution is not only unique in its implementation, but also the most natural for us as an audience to accept. It takes us away from being removed from the story by questioning the absence of a phone, and also no longer makes us feel like a sneaking voyeur who is looking over someone's shoulder to figure out what's going on with the story. It's similar to hearing a character's voiceover as their internal dialogue.
Conclusion inevitable.
We are given an unnatural view into the character's motivations, but since we accept the suspension of disbelief to follow the plot, it works and enhances how we understand the characters and the story. Technology will always present new and unique challenges for filmmakers to solve. And movies that embrace these technological advancements, like cell phones or AI, or something we haven't even begun to think of, have a chance to change and possibly improve the ways we tell stories. Don't forget, the idea of moving pictures flashing on screen in a realistic manner was once far-fetched science fiction. And after it became a reality, the concept of having sound that was synced with those moving pictures seemed laughable.
Synchronized together in perfect unison since the earliest days of the cinema.
There's somebody talking behind that screen.
Come out from behind that screen, Mr. Simpson.
No, I'm right here.
Of our pioneer.
Embracing the changes in technology is how we even have the mediums to tell stories that we do today. So next time you're watching a movie, and you see a cell phone being written out of use, try our little mental game and ask yourself, how would keeping the phone in this scene change everything? We hope you liked our look into how technology has changed the way movies tell their stories. If you enjoyed this video, please let us know down in the comments and consider liking the video and subscribing to our channel. This has been Cursory Analysis. Thank you.